What's up, card fighters? This is Josh over here at Team Sci, and today I'm going to be showing you guys my Star-vader Chaosbringer Dragon deck. Now, first off, I wanted to apologize for not putting up any content for the last couple of weeks. After the Atlanta, Georgia regionals, I've had a lot of personal things come up in my life, and I've been having to deal with those, but I'm back on track now, and I'm making more videos for you guys. So, now that that's out of the way, I wanted to show you guys my Star-vader Chaosbringer Dragon deck. Like I was saying, I played this in Atlanta, Georgia, and this video is going to be kind of like a tournament report, but not really. I just wanted to kind of show you guys what card choices I was playing and why I was playing what I was playing. So basically, obviously the starter was Involution Star-vader Carbon, best starter of the deck. He's basically a grade 0 Photon, or I'm sorry, not Photon, but Colony Maker. If your opponent has a locked card, you can put him into the soul and then call out any grade 1 or 0 from your deck. So he's really good, no counterblast, he fills the soul, and he gets you any grade 1 or 0 you need. So basically he'll get the crit trigger if you need to lock another card. He can get the limit break enabler so you can start your pluses rolling. He's just really versatile card. On to the grade 0s. We are running 4 of the new critical trigger. This critical basically says you can put it back into the deck, and if your opponent has a locked card and you have a Star-vader Vanguard, you can lock something in their back row. So this card is really good for just adding another lock. I mean, you can grab it off of Colony Maker, you can grab it off of Carbon to get that extra lock you need if you are stuck on the alternate grade 3, so you can get your Chaosbringer. Also, what some people don't know about this card, it says if your opponent has a locked card, choose up to one of your opponent's rear guards in the back row and lock it. So if your opponent doesn't have anything in the back row, you can still pay the cost to put this back in the deck and not lock anything, because it says up to one. So this card is really good. And also, any triggers that go back into the deck are amazing, especially critical triggers. And then we run 4 of the Star-vader Meteor Liger, just a generic critical to add 8 crits to the deck. We're running 4 of the Star-vader Nebula Captor, 4 draw triggers. I feel like draw triggers are good in this deck because the deck has a very slow early game, and I feel like it's necessary to be able to have defensive triggers early game to keep you in against rush decks like Sanctuary Guard and Ripple, stuff like that. And then obviously I'm running 4 heal triggers. We're running 4 of the Tellurium and 2 of the Pixie powder because I like the artwork on both of them. But it's basically just 8 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal. So pretty standard for the most part, but it works. Okay, on to the grade 1s. We are running 4 of the new Flowers in Vacuum Cosmo Wreath Perfect Guard. I prefer this Perfect Guard to the Star-vader one for one simple reason. That's because it unflips Counterblast. Now in this deck, you're going to find that Counterblast are your biggest resource, because a lot of your cards cost Counterblast, like your main Stride costs Counterblast. Both of your grade 3s cost Counterblast, and 2 of your grade 2s cost Counterblast. So it's like everything's costing Counterblast, and basically the only way you can lock things outside of Photon is by using a Counterblast. So you need to be very weary of what you're counterblasting and how many Counterblasts you're using. That's why also this other grade 1 that we play is very, very, very important. Turmoil Star-vader Zinc. This card basically says you can put it into the soul, and if you have a Vanguard with Chaos in its card name and your opponent has a lock card, you can soul charge 2 and decounterblast 2. So it basically ensures you that you can keep your locking potential going, and you can keep locking your opponent's stuff and you won't run out of counterblast. Now, back to the Perfect Guard. Yes, Chaosbringer skill says that you can only soul blast Star-vaders to draw cards, but that's literally the only non-Star-vader that we're playing other than the pitch to stride fodder in the deck. So the positives of the card really outweigh the negatives, because there's situations where I found that I was playtesting with the Star-vader Perfect Guard and I needed an open counterblast and I wasn't able to get it. And my opponent was just playing around that because they knew that if I didn't have counterblast, I wasn't going to be able to lock anything. But on with the grade 1s, we are running 3 of the Destiny Dealer Stride Enabler. Stride Enabler in any deck is just really good. It enables you to guarantee your stride, and it's just a one-card stride other than having to pitch a grade 3. Because we are only running 7 grade 3s in this deck, so I feel like it's necessary to have ways to easily stride, because having to pitch 2 cards for stride is rough a lot of the time. Especially if it's on your first stride and your resources are already kind of dwindling. Because you're not really going to be drawing cards until like the turn after you ride grade 3. So you need to be able to have a 1-card stride. Then we're playing 2 of the Eclipse Star-vader Charcoal. I've seen a lot of builds play just 1, but I didn't feel comfortable with playing 1. I like 2 because of the fact that you can easily damage this or have to ride it, and then you won't have a limit break enabler for the rest of the game. So there's a lot of times where I've had this go to damage or I've had to ride this, and I still have the one in deck that I can call out. Because especially if you're stuck on Chaosbringer, like the limit break enabler is so important because it allows you to get your Chaos breaker from the deck. Because if your opponent sees that you don't have the limit break enabler, they're just going to play around that. And then for the last 2 spots, I'm playing 2 kind of techs. I'm playing 1 Prison Star-vader Palladium. Basically, he says you can counterblast 1 and put him into the soul, and during your opponent's end phase, when a card would unlock, you can put him into the soul and relock that unit. So basically, the ruling with him and Chaosbreaker, it works like this. You can activate his skill first to relock something that's unlocking, and then you can soul blast him to basically draw for that same card that's being relocked, because it still counts as being unlocked for Chaosbreaker's ability. Now, it won't get retired by Chaosbreaker's ability because it will be relocked, but it does work like that. And then for the final spot, I'm running 1 Star-vader Vault Line. This card is amazing. It's super free. It just says when an attack hits during the battle that this unit boosted, you can choose one of your opponent's lock units and Omega lock it. So this card is really clutch if you put it behind Vanguard. It forces your opponent to either perfect guard it or eat it and risk one of their front row rear guards being Omega locked. So this is really good against every deck that isn't Link Joker. And it can, all these little grade 1s, these 1 of techs can easily be brought out with Carbon and Colony Maker. That's why I saw the possibility to run 1 ofs, because you can make it work. For the grade 2 spot, we're running 4 Companion Star-vader Photon. Legion Rare, of course. But this card is easily the best grade 2 of the deck. He basically says when you place him on rearguard, if you have a Star-vader Vanguard and your opponent has a lock card, you just lock anything on their board. So this keeps your pluses rolling. It allows you to lock without counterblast, which is really big. And it just lets you easily control your opponent's board during the game. And then we're running his brother. Not as good, but still very good. Disorder Star-vader Iron. This is the new card. It basically says when he attacks, if you have a Chaos Breaker or just a Chaos Vanguard, he swings as an 11k. So it's pretty big. He can swing by himself and still hit Vanguard if you don't have like the necessary boosters. But his other effect that's really good is when he's placed on rearguard, you counterblast 1, and he basically has Photon skill. If your opponent has a lock card, you can lock something else. Now he's basically a Photon for 1 counterblast, but I feel like he's necessary because you want to have grade 2s that consistently lock your opponent's cards. That way you can just keep controlling the board easily. And like I said, this is an 11k attacker, so you don't even need a booster for this, and it can still hit Vanguard. So he's really good. And then on to the last grade 2 of the deck. We're running 4 Sword Meat of the deck, Star-vader Colony Maker. This card is absolutely broken. When your opponent has a lock card and he's placed on rearguard, you can counterblast 1 and search your deck for any grade 1 or 0 and call it to rearguard. So he gets literally anything you need. You can get the Limit Break Enabler, you can get Vault Line, you can get Palladium, like whatever rearguard you need in whatever situation, he can get it for you. And there's some times where I've been on Chaosbringer and I didn't have a card to lock another card to be able to superior ride Chaosbreaker, and so I've used him to call out the crit trigger and activated the crit trigger's effect to lock something else in their back row. That way I have the 2 locked cards for Chaosbringer's effect. So this card is just super versatile, and like I said, it's the sword me of the deck. Okay, and on to the grade 3s. We're running, of course, 4 Star-vader Chaosbringer Dragon. This card is absolutely broken. When this card first came out, it was like super hard to deal with because there was nothing that could really keep up with it. This card pluses so much, and now that it has the new support, it literally fixed every problem that Link Joker pretty much ever had. So he has 2 skills. Basically, he has a Limit Break 4 ability, and it says you can Soul Blast 1 card with Star-vader in its name at the end of the turn. When one of your opponent's rear guards unlocks, you can Soul Blast the Star-vader, like I said, and retire that unit and draw a card. So you can do that for as many units that unlock, as long as you have the soul to fill the requirements. So it just gives you massive hand power, and then now that there's a lot more cards that go into the soul, you can just keep drawing a bunch of cards every turn. Then his second effect, which is pretty good when you first ride grade 3, you counterblast 1, and then you discard a Star-vader from your hand, and you can lock one of your opponent's rear guards. Now, it's kind of bad because it's a -1, but it's really not too terrible because you're locking one of your opponent's units, so that's one attack that you don't have to worry about next turn. And obviously, like, this card can punish your opponent for early rushing you, because if they call a full field to attack you with, you can just call him, lock one of their rear guards in the front row, call Photon or call Iron, and lock their other rear guard in the front row. So that way, literally the first turn that they stride, you only have to worry about 1 attack, which is devastating for decks like Nova Grapplers and Aquaforce. It just completely destroys their strategy. Then on to the last grade 3, we are running 3 Star-vader Chaosbringer. I decided to go with 3 over 4 because ideally we want to get our Chaosbreaker as easily as possible, because sometimes this doesn't always work out. But it is still really good, and there's a lot of games where I wish I would start with this guy over Chaosbreaker. He has 2 skills too. He basically Limit Break 4. You can Counterblast 1, and at the beginning of your opponent's main phase, if your opponent has 2 or more lock cards, you can pay the cost, and if you do, you can search your deck for Chaosbreaker and Superior Ride it in the standing position. So basically a play to guarantee that you get your Chaosbreaker. It does suck that it's a Limit Break ability, but that's why you play the Limit Break Enabler, so you can ensure that you get this skill off and that you can keep drawing cards. And then his other skill that I really, really like is that when it's placed on Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 card with Star-vader in its name, and you can lock one of your opponent's rear guards in the back row. So this is a really good strategy. Like if your opponent rides grade 3 first, you can ride this, lock something in your opponent's back row, and then stride into the Chaos Universe and just keep locking more things. So it's really, really strong. It's not like Chaosbreaker where it's an axe skill and you have to use it during your main phase. It's when it rides, which is really good. And also you don't have to discard a card, which is also really good. Alright, on to the grade 4s here. We're playing, obviously, 4 of the Death Star-vader Chaos Universe. This card basically fixed every problem that Link Joker has ever had, because he allows you to lock cards from your opponent's hand. So basically before, when Link Joker first came out, the opponent would basically try to not call a full field early. That way Chaosbreaker wouldn't be able to lock anything. But with this card, you can basically punish your opponent for not calling a field, because for 1 counterblast and 1 basically G-flip, you can lock something from your opponent's hand in an open rearguard circle, and then also if you have 1 unit face up in the G-zone, you can lock another unit. So this card is really good. Definitely your first go-to stride. He basically punishes every deck in the meta. The next spot for grade 4s, we're running 2 Nebula Dragon, Big Crunch Dragon. I feel like this card is necessary because resist units, a lot of resist units have been going around, and this is your only out to resist. It allows you to counterblast 1, choose a rear guard, and lock all rear guards in the same column as that unit. So basically, let's say you have a like a column, the grade 1 and the grade 2 in the front has resist, the grade 1 in the back doesn't. You can target the grade 1 without resist, and it'll lock everything in that column. So basically, you're not targeting the resist unit, but you're still able to lock it. So this card is really good. Also, it omega locks that column. So basically, 2 turns where you don't have to worry about that column. Now, it does hinder you a little bit because you won't be able to unlock them initially with Chaosbringer and redraw. But it does allow you to control the board a lot easier. And you can easily lock a column here, then call a Photon and lock the other rear guard. So consistently making it so that your opponent has no rear guards to attack with. So like against decks like Aquaforce and Great Nature, you're just completely destroying their strategy. And then the last card for grade 4s, we're running 2 Genesis Dragon Amnesty Messiahs. This card is like strictly for the mirror match. If your opponent locks all of your stuff, you can punish them by unlocking it all and potentially gaining an extra crit. And also, I found that like endgame where I just need a stride to go into, if I'm already basically going to win the game and my other strides aren't going to do anything, I just go into him as like an endgame power booster. It's not the best, but I'd rather play this than anything else because it strengthens your mirror match matchup just that much more. And like ideally against the mirror match, you want to try and grade 2 rush them. So like what I found that I do is when I'm playing when I'm playing against the mirror match, I'll call like my Photons and my Irons early on in the game. That way I can grade 2 rush my opponent and force them to high damage early on, because that's literally the easiest way to beat Chaosbringer, is to control the early game and to put them at a high damage count early game and force them to ride grade 3 first, because when they ride grade 3 first, you can just ride your grade 3 and then stride into Amnesty and just punish them. But that's pretty much it for the grade 4s. Like I said, I took this deck to Atlanta, Georgia. I was personally 5-2 on the day, and my team was 6-1. My only losses were round 1 against a new Atomic player that had the G assist for his grade 2. He got it and then just proceeded to crit me every single drive check after that. So there wasn't really much I could do. I didn't see a perfect guard. And unfortunately, when he strode his second grade 4, I didn't have the perfect, so he just hit the crit and was able to beat me when I was at 4 damage. And then my other loss was, I believe, round either 4 or 5. I was playing against a Messiah matchup, and that's already a bad matchup to begin with because they can just unlock all of their stuff with Amnesty. But I didn't have a grade 2. I G-assisted initially for it, didn't get it. G-assisted the turn after, I got it, but it was just too late. He was too far ahead for me to do anything. But yeah, I do suggest that if you don't already have this deck, or you look forward to picking it up, I suggest that you do. It's a really strong deck. Even in this upcoming meta, it's still going to be a force to be reckoned with. It's still going to be the best control deck in the game. And it's still going to be able to compete with decks like Shadow Paladins with their new support, and even the Legend deck when they get their new support. Because the deck just stops you from making optimal plays. Like, you still have to deal with restanding Vanguards and all that, but being able to only worry about the Vanguard attack is big. But I wanted to thank you guys for watching, and like always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. We're going to be putting out a lot more now that everything's back to normal. We're back on track. So keep an eye out for that, and I'll catch you guys later.